Welcome to GK's educational videos. We are explaining the very important topic related to junior intermediate in macroeconomic aspects, Keynesian theory of employment. Very important concept. Classical economists considered full employment as a general situation in the long run, but J.M. Keynes considered full employment only a special case. There is always less than full employment. He stated that employment theory in his famous book General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, published in 1936. According to Keynes' theory, the level of employment is determined by the two important factors. One is aggregate supply, aggregate demand. The economy attains equilibrium. Aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. The point where the aggregate demand equal to aggregate supply is called effective demand. Aggregate supply is the total supply of goods and services in the economy. It is called aggregate supply price. It refers to the minimum total income that the entrepreneur must receive from the sale on the total output. Aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is the total demand for goods and services in the economy. Aggregate demand price refers to expected expenditure on the part of the community. So effective demand. Effective demand is a point where the aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. So economy is in equilibrium. From the above table, we observe that when the level of employment 14 lakhs, aggregate demand 14 lakh workers, aggregate demand price equal to aggregate supply, that is 700 crores. So effective demand is 700 crores. This is explained through diagram. In the above diagram, aggregate demand price curve, aggregate supply price curve intersect each other at point of equilibrium E1. At the equilibrium is attaining ON, the level of employment, but ON does not indicate full employment. According to Keynes, to achieve the full employment, an upward shift of aggregate demand curve is required. The AD curve has shift to the AD2. A shift to the AD2. The new point of effective demand is E2, not E1. The economy reaches full employment level, which is ONF. Suppose if the beyond E2 further rise in the aggregate demand leads to inflation, then there will be no scope for increasing in supply because all resources are utilized fully. Here there is a gap between E2 and E3. It is called inflationary gap. These are the main important points in the Keynesian theory of employment. So diagram and table and separate diagram is required. Aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Separate a table is also required, and combined table is also required. Aggregate demand and aggregate supply, where the both are equilibrium at 14 lakh laborers, and specific diagram is there. You should practice all the diagrams and remaining important points in this Keynesian theory. So this is a very important question for public examinations. Very easy question. So you can easily to draw the diagrams Very important question.